the most famous photo here, which is the stabilizer. This is the most famous photo from the crash site.
Phoenix, you burst in a fire, burn my thirst and desire. You transform and up in a flash. You spread your wings to rise from the ashes. Phoenix, you burst in a fire, burn my thirst and
Hey y'all, hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. My name is Sasha. Welcome back to my channel if you are new. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, my Lower Royals. So good to see you. If you are new to the fam, welcome to the family, my new Lower Royals. So good to finally meet you. Welcome to another Aviation Monday. And today's Aviation Monday is going to be the second in the Spooktober series for Aviation Mondays. As for today's particular episode, this one kind of, not gonna say it hits home for me, but it happened around the time that I actually joined the aviation industry, because I entered the aviation industry in April of 2009. This would take place in June of the same year. So, as a disclaimer, I will put all of my sources down below. If you are one that you enjoy investigations on your own, you're more than welcome to look through everything. Just keep in mind, I am only going by the facts and information I have found online, whether through via Wikipedia or some other source. I know a lot of people don't like Wikipedia, but Wikipedia has a lot of info. But even if I do use that source, I do go back and check with other more accountable sources, that when people say that they don't like that particular one, and if they pretty much say the same thing, then I can use both in my source statement. So keep that in mind. I'm just going by what I find, and everything will be listed down below. With all that said, enjoy the story. Summertime can make for a beautiful experience. This includes fun in the sun, clear skies, and other pleasantries. However, summertime can also bring something else, especially over the ocean, and that's thunderstorms. While on the ground, a thunderstorm can seem like relaxing background noise for sleeping and relaxation, but thunderstorms are not always a friend from nature. Storms can also bring about destruction and cause casualties. Airplanes are able to fly different paths to deviate away from storms and turbulence. But what happens when that path is unavoidable? What becomes of the passengers, crew, and aircraft? Would they survive going through a storm? Think about that for a moment. It's time to find out the fate of an airliner that had the unfortunate path through a severe weather condition. This is the story of Air France Flight 447. The main aircraft in this story is an Airbus A330 manufactured by Airbus. The A330 was first introduced on November 2nd, 1991, and introduced to the industry to its first carrier on January 17th, 1994. However, the aircraft involved in this story was only 4 years old, having taken its first flight on February 25th, 2005, and delivered 2 months later to Air France on April 18th, 2005. At the time, it was the newest delivery to Air France. The aircraft was part of a scheduled flight from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. On board the aircraft were 228 occupants, which consisted of 216 passengers and 12 crew. Of the crew were 58-year-old Captain Marc Dubois, whom had 10,988 flying hours, 6,258 as captain, and 1,700 hours on the A330. First officer, co-pilot in the right seat, 32-year-old Pierre-Cédric Bonin, who had 2,936 flight hours, 807 were on the A380, and 37-year-old co-pilot David Robert, whom had 6,547 flight hours, 4,479 hours on the A380. The passengers were business and holiday travelers with nationalities ranging majority of French, Brazilian, and German. Of the passengers, some notables included Prince Pedro Luiz of Orleans Bragança, who was third in succession to the abolished throne of Brazil, Giambattista Lenzi, who was a member of the Regional Council of Trentino Alto Adige, and Isabella Maria Furtado Kessler, who was a professor of German studies at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. The aircraft left Rio de Janeiro on May 31st, 2009 at 7:29 p.m. Brazilian Standard Time and was scheduled to arrive at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport at 11:03 Central European Summer Time the following day, with a flight time of 10 hours 34 minutes. Around 3 hours and 6 minutes after takeoff, voice contact was lost, and shortly afterward, the aircraft left the Brazilian Atlantic radar surveillance, entering a communication dead zone. A few hours into the flight, Captain Du Bois left the flight deck for crew rest, leaving David and Pierre to fly the plane. Just as a side note, when it comes to long-haul international flights, crew members are required by law to have a certain amount of rest during the flight, hence why there was 3 of them versus 2 like you see on domestic United States flights if you fly around in the US. And this is to kind of rotate them so that they stay, I guess you could say, fresh for the flight to keep flying. And that way they don't get too tired while they fly. 3 minutes later, the aircraft entered into icy conditions. The ice crystals accumulated on the aircraft's pitot tubes. And for those that are unaware, pitot tubes are used to determine an aircraft's airspeed. Due to the conditions, the engine's anti-ice system activated and autopilot disconnected, giving Bonin manual control of the aircraft. Without the autopilot, the turbulence caused the aircraft to roll left and right. Bonin then used several maneuvers to get the aircraft under control, during which the aircraft's stall warning sounded and the aircraft's airspeed drastically dropped. Eventually, the wings lost lift and the plane began to stall. The stall would then doom the entire flight. One of the last recordings where Bonin was heard saying, "We're going to crash. This can't be true. But what's happening?" The aircraft struck the ocean belly first, completely destroying the aircraft and killing all 228 passengers and crew on board. In the aftermath, several things happened. These changes included changing the flight number from 447 to 445 and when changing altitude without direct air traffic control authorization, Mayday signals are sent out to warn other pilots of severe turbulence. This is only several things when it comes to the aftermath of what happened. As far as the flight number changes go, that's actually something typical that happens with any flight that crashes. And what most carriers will do is sometimes they'll change the flight number, but for the most part, they tend to do what we call retiring that flight number, meaning that they, instead of using 447 will be completely erased from database, meaning that it's never going to be used ever again for any flight whatsoever for that carrier. Someone else may use the same number, I'm not sure, but as far as that particular carrier, If that flight number was involved in an accident or some kind of incident that caused casualty or death or something like that, then it is usually forever retired and never used again. So, as a way of closure, a memorial was erected for the victims of this particular accident. I will put a picture on the screen if you want to see what that memorial looks like, as well as the name of the place where the memorial is located. As far as my thoughts go, usually whenever I do an investigation, I have a lot that I can speak about on it, but honestly, there's not really much I have or want to say in regards to this particular crash, because the scary thing about this is the biggest thing it did was it gave a sort of broadened view of why it's important to pay attention with the tower, with why it's important for the tower to pay attention when a pilot makes a frantic call of Mayday, because according to what I read, they put the Mayday call out. Another flight had gone the same path that 447 had flown, and they encountered very severe turbulence that may not have ended well for them had they not been able to get out of it. But they in turn put out a Mayday call because they couldn't get in contact with the tower. And what that did in turn was let other pilots know about the amount of severe turbulence. And even our own pilots, the airline I work with, our own pilots, when I fly on us, they do the same thing. If there's severe turbulence ahead, before they decide to change their altitude, they will give all passengers a heads up to say, hey, just so you know that there's going to be severe turbulence ahead, and we will be flying at a different altitude, and this signal was given to us by another flight that was further ahead of us. So I can only say that something that I know that someone has told me before is it takes a tragedy for change to occur, and changes have occurred as a result of the Air France crash. I know I didn't mention much, the biggest change being that the Mayday calls will be made if the pilots are unable to get a hold of the tower. That's the biggest change that comes out of this. There are others. The reason why I try to keep this one a little shorter than the other was because there's so much information about this particular crash, between the info that's given about it, the conspiracies that happened with it, the search, the fact that it took 2 full years to find the black box. 2 years to find it. And of course, 2 years to find majority of the airplane's fuselage. Because of how hard it hit the ocean, it essentially not disintegrated, but it broke into major pieces. So, and of course, the most famous photo here, which is the stabilizer. This is the most famous photo from the crash site. But other than that, I do hope that you found this video interesting. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of this particular accident? Is this something that you knew about, or did you just now learn about? I will give props though. There is an episode that aired for air crash investigation, and it's called Air France 447 Vanished. That was aired by Air Crash Investigation. If I can find the link for it, I'll put it down in the description box below. I highly suggest checking it out. There are many other documentaries on this particular accident as well. If you want to look those up, please do. Please make sure you check those out as well. But other than that, that is it. I'm sorry if my thoughts portion of this were all over the place, but hey, can't help it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy aviation and travel, please do consider subscribing to my channel. If you will, if you may, please go follow me over on Twitter at DragonPink07. Let me know down in the comments down below. Did you know about Air France Flight 447? If not, Did you learn something new from this video? I hope so. So again, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, give it a comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, other aviation enthusiasts, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.
Never say